In today's video we will talk about graphs. We will talk about how to create data for your graph, how to draw your graph, and how to manipulate your graph. We will start with a new empty canvas. To create a graph, we first need to create the data for it. The best way to do this is to have a matrix variable for the graph. We will create variable A, and on the right hand side we will create a matrix 5 times 2. To draw a 2D graph, you need the data from a matrix. The upper row is the x-coordinates for the graph points, and the bottom row is the y-coordinates for the graph points. The first column is your x and y coordinates for your first graph point, and the second column is your second xy coordinates for your second graph point. Let's fill the matrix with some data. The x coordinates will be -23, -2, 2.56, 17.6, and 47. The y coordinates will be 4, 8, 1, 3.7, and 47. If you press the graph tab and then select the graph icon and click with the cursor on the canvas, a graph will appear. You can move the graph by dragging the area around the title with the left click. By right-clicking on the graph, you will get a menu, and we are going to add variable A. As you can see, we have created our graph. Our matrix has 5 columns, so our graph has 5 points. Using the left click, you are able to pan the graph. To zoom and unzoom, use the mouse scroller. In this way, we can change the graph view. Using the right click and selecting auto range, it will move the graph to its original place. If you click the data table icon, you will get all the graph data. They are the same data as variable A. There is another simple way to create graph data. This function curve2D will generate a matrix data for the graph. The first argument in the function curve2D is the graph function. In this case, it is sin x. Sin x is the symbolic function, and it is the y function of the curve. If the y-axis has multiple arguments, we need to specify which arguments we are going to use in the graph. In our case, we only have one argument, and that will be just x. The next two arguments will represent the left end and the right end on the x-axis, which is the domain of the graph. The last argument represents the number of points inside the graph. This means that the interval between -5 and 5 will be divided into 100 points. Now we are going to right-click on the graph again and add variable B. You can see a little blue curve, which is variable B. In the top right corner, you can see a list of all the variables and the corresponding color to their curve. Sinus x is a small graph because the y range is from 1 to -1. Now we are going to remove curve A by right-clicking and removing variable A. Now we are going to right-click and select auto range to get the proper view of a sin x graph. If we drag the cursor around the title area, we can move the graph. If you double click slightly under the title, you can change the title of the graph. We are going to type in lesson 2D graph and press enter. If you double click on the axis name, you can change the axis name. If we now open the data table, we can see the data of all 100 points of the sine x graph. As you can see, the start domain of the graph is -5. At the bottom is the right end of the domain and the corresponding y value. As mentioned, there are 100 points. By dragging the light blue dot, you can resize the graph. You can move the graph, but only inside the canvas. We can add more graphs to the same canvas. We are going to resize both graphs and place them side by side. In the left graph, we are going to add variable a. We are now going to place graph titles table. For the selected graph, we will only have one row in the table because of the graph having one curve. The table is already predefined with the name, title, color, and origin. You can edit the graph table. We are going to type example 1 for the title. That's all for now.